I should have
Yeah, no.
okay, great. Well, here we go. Let me pull up your bio. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited. I finally have another interview. I did actually do an interview a couple weeks ago, but it was um a blast from the past. It was an archived interview that I had done months prior. So I'm so happy to be here with Jay, Jasmine, Herman. We work together, and I will talk all about that during the podcast. But Jay is an award winning storyteller with 20 years of experience as a content strategist and copy editor. She partners with entertainers, wellness providers, marketing agencies, and nonprofit leaders to help them clarify and perfect their digital marketing. Jay also passionately champions women entrepreneurs to embrace their creative storytelling confidence in her Boss Squad, which is a membership community for women leaders. And I am going to put links to all of Jay's great work in the show notes. And so, on the 1 year anniversary of my podcast, I'm so happy to have Jay here on the show. Welcome,
Wow.
Jay.
Thank you so much for that intro. And I'm so glad to be here. It's great.
So great. So I talked a little bit about who you are, what you do in your professional life. Will you just fill that in, like fill in the gaps? How do you talk about yourself? What's your mission as a business owner?
Wow, that is a very loaded question. And so apropos in that I was just having a conversation yesterday with a longtime entrepreneur, and that question, like when you're in a networking group, so what do you do? And I said, the next time I'm asked that question, I'm going to go, wait, what have you heard?
Well, I could fill in the blanks for sure. I have my own story about you.
Well, to the bio that you read, yes, I've been in a digital marketing space for over 20 years. I niched down into copy editing and content strategy within the last 5 years because ultimately I found that's what I was helping my clients with the most. To say I'm a grammar and word nerd goes without saying. I love the storytelling aspect of marketing, which that is what marketing is. It's strategic storytelling, right? So whether I'm helping someone to get to the foundation of what their story is and how to share it, then where do I share it and what process do I need to continue sharing it consistently and regularly? That's where I think I help my clients the most. And then we do the same thing in Boss Squad, which is the community that I launched last year.
It's so great. So I found you so randomly, and this is what I love about like the world. So a friend, I mean, I say a friend, like someone I kind of did some work with in the past, someone I kind of know in town in the Netherlands, had connected with you maybe in some group writing in a workshop or something. I'm not sure. But
Hmm.
I saw that she was connected to you on Instagram, and I was like, ooh, writing coach. That was kind of your position at the time,
Mm-hmm.
like be able to help clients kind of crack open their
Mm-hmm.
stories and really align with their stories and get some help through that process. And so I found you on Instagram, which I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, like sometimes it's a match, right? And sometimes Instagram is so wild and crazy, like you just don't know if you're gonna really connect with someone in a DM on Instagram. It's so random. But I wrote to you, and at the time, I really wanted to write a book. I had some ideas. It still hasn't launched. It's coming. I talk about it in the podcast a lot, so people are like, sure, you wrote a book. But Jay, you were so fundamental. Like I felt like I had this craving to write a book almost just to see if I could do it, like not even being that attached to the content so much. And so I had some sort of predefined content. And you just were a miracle worker in helping me shape it. Like the process was so great. Like you were both encouraging and you were very direct with your feedback. And I needed that, right? Like I had a long way to go. I feel like from where I started and where we ended, I felt a massive evolution in my writing, and not only in my writing, but in my confidence, which is what coaches do,
Aw.
right? They help bring out all the other
Mhm.
pieces that are your blocks to why you're not doing the thing and procrastinating against it. And the process was just phenomenal. And in so many ways too, Jay, like really life changing. It
Well,
really,
thank you. You made it worth it in the sense that you were so great to work with and receptive to my suggestions and recommendations. But ultimately, your book is so good, right? I think I've said so many times reading it, I felt like it was a version of Eat, Pray, Love. Like it took me through the journey of your life experiences, but then also gave me a guide to follow if I were, wanting to really explore that self-care aspect of being an entrepreneur, and going through those exercises. So you made it easy for me to work with you because it was great content. And I honestly feel like we meet the people that we're supposed to meet and work with. Like, I think you were one of the last people that I connected with on Instagram because I'm not on Instagram anymore. Like,
yes,
I ditched Instagram, I ditched Facebook. I haven't been on them. You were one of the last people. So that, to me, that was supposed to happen because we're also connected on LinkedIn. So potentially we could have met there, but we were
right.
supposed to meet when we did, and we did the work that we were supposed to do. And I strongly believe that. And I say that in that way because I feel like there's so many people, so many entrepreneurs, especially young solopreneurs. And when I say young, I mean, early stage, feeling that they must show up on a certain platform in a certain way because that's what the gurus and experts tell them they should be doing. And I've said this, stop shitting on yourself. It's not nice, right? Don't do the shoulds. Go where you are led. Expend the energy that feels authentic for you, wherever that is. And it may not be a social platform, it may be your own platform, or it may be email marketing. But yeah, don't do the shoulds, and know that the people that are supposed to find you will find you, and take comfort in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's interesting that even though you got a client from Instagram, you still decided to go off of it. And I think that's an important piece too, where it's like, I've chosen these values and I've chosen to go in this
Mm-hmm.
direction and not to be swayed, even though it seems like, well, maybe I'm getting clients from there. And oh, and so I should stay on there because I'm getting clients. I love that you were still like, no, I have very clear values here and I'm going to end those platforms and stick with it. I think that's great.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm an introvert, specifically an INFJ. And for anyone listening who identifies as an INFJ person, it's like that sense of integrity. If I say I'm going to do something, I have to do it. I must do it. I'm compelled to do it. Or maybe that's my OCD and not INFJ, but you get what I'm saying. And so I just felt like I couldn't, in my soul, feel like I don't want to support meta products because I don't trust them. I think there are privacy issues. I don't want to subject my readers, my listeners, my followers to um, ads and just deceitful practices. And so, if I know in my soul that that's how I feel, even if I were getting $1 million clients through those platforms, it wouldn't feel good to me. So I had to make a conscious, and also too, for my own peace of mind, I had to leave the platforms because nothing good was coming of it for me personally. Like dancing dog videos, haha, really funny, but that wasn't really moving the needle of anything. So, yeah, making that decision and then being off of all platforms for a couple months, when I took my winter break, that was a huge turning point for me because it allowed me to go back to listening to my voice, my inner voice, my creative voice without the noise of other people's opinions. I highly recommend doing that.
Yes. Yes, we get bombarded. We get bombarded. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
take a step back because you have clearly, been an entrepreneur for a while, and you come from a similar background that I do. We come from marketing and some agency kind of level work. So, because I don't think I know the story, like where did this leap happen for you? Where did it start, this entrepreneurial journey for you?
Oh, wow. Well, I didn't wake up one day as a child and say, I want to be an entrepreneur, which does happen because I have a niece who she is going to be or is an entrepreneur. So, yeah, my early aspirations were to be a novelist. And then I wanted to be an astronaut. And then I wanted to be a mermaid. None of those things were, obviously feasible. Throughout school, I wanted to pursue criminal justice, which in a sense I did because that's my undergraduate degree is criminal justice and psychology. Fast forward after that, I joined the military because I wanted that experience to join the FBI and become Clarice from Silence of the Lambs. Fast forward even, yeah, that didn't pan out. And then I was a bored housewife looking for something to do with myself
Hmm.
and found, like a crafting magazine or something. And I was like, well, gemstones, my grandfather was a sort of DIY gemologist, so I'd been around gems and I thought, oh, I can like work with gemstones and make jewelry. And I did. They were very crude. They were awful, but I was giving them away as gifts. And the more I practiced and got better, and I then got into metalsmithing, I was making like really nice stuff. And my friends and my husband at the time convinced me to start selling it. No business degree, no business background, no marketing, nothing. So I had to teach myself marketing, how to build a website. Social media was just becoming a thing at the time. I think Twitter was leading. So I got on Twitter and, Facebook at the time. I had to teach myself all of those things. That was my foray into being, I don't think I knew what the word entrepreneur was. It was like this foreign word to me. So that was my first attempt. And I did well for a few years. I stayed mostly wholesale. So I had international clients that I did wholesale accounts with. And that forayed into media production because I had to do the photography and start doing, video stuff for my products. And that somehow I was doing a digital magazine after that, which then made me an editor in chief, air quotes. Didn't know exactly what I was supposed to be doing there, but learned it along the way. Got some marketing clients from that because folks could see that I was marketing myself. And yeah, that was the, sort of the trajectory of how I went from jewelry as a business to now I'm a media consultant.
Right. Interesting. I love that because it's so like 2000s to not have a linear path, right? Like we've
Mm-hmm.
accepted it now. Like in the 90s
Right.
and the 80s, it was not okay to have a path that was a little windy. But I think it's so indicative of entrepreneurs because if it's in our like body that we're supposed to be
Mm.
working for ourselves, it's hard for us to stay put in a linear path because that's not how the entrepreneur brain works. We are all about ideation and collaboration and trying things on and testing and trialing and testing and trialing. And you were like, let me go over here and try this and let me try this and let me try this on and let me try this. Okay. And now I'm gonna stay here for a while. This feels good.
Yeah,
But I love that. That's like that is the classic entrepreneur path.
I think that came about from, I also tried some acting along that way. I was an actress for about 10 years. And to start that, I was in improv. And one concept in improv is the yes and mentality. So
Yep.
if you're in a scene with someone and they give you something, you don't drop it, you take it and you run with it because that's your yes and. I take what you give me and go. And that was my thinking about opportunities that presented themselves. It's like, I wonder what would happen if I did this. Let me see. I'm going to take it and go with it. And it may go well. It may complement something I'm already doing. Or, okay, I tried it and that didn't fit. And that's how I saw positions, corporate positions that I would take while I was doing my own thing. Like that idea of I'm going to work a job and have a side hustle, right? Because that's the new 2024, you know, thing that the kids are doing. It's like, I got a side hustle. I'm a side hustler. Well, no, my thinking was trying to be my own boss as an entrepreneur and service people. That's my focus. Going to work for someone else, whether it was for like health insurance or a great opportunity, that was my side hustle.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I can completely relate. And I think for me too, it was so much an identity thing. I'm not going to
Mm,
identify with this job. Like this is just a job that I have to do, but it's not, I'm not going to put my identity there because I have my identity is over here. I'm trying to build this thing or I want to get this thing off the ground and I'm just doing this because I have to and I'm not going to identify that way. Like I would never
mhm.
introduce myself as doing that job if I was networking. It's like, no, I'm doing this. Like, this is my job. This is just the thing I do to like make a little extra money or get health insurance. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
and it's a mindset. I think once we, at whatever stage we're in, have that understanding that it's a mindset shift. That once you determine what works best for you and your energy and your space and your flow, stay on that trajectory because everything else is logistics. Everything else is, pivot points. It To me that makes more sense than saying when I do this I have to feel and do and be this way because that's a box, but when I'm over here that's another box. It's like, no, let everything else orbit around what you've chosen as your beacon, right?
Yeah.
Because I talk about belief beacons when working with clients, like what are your core values, which is different than what's your value proposition statement. That's different than what your personal beliefs and values are that drive you as a person. And then morphing that into how can I use that in a way that services other people, that's a value proposition statement. Those are different. um, and I'm not saying that that happens like overnight. It's taken me years to understand that and to be able to verbalize that in such a way that I can share that with someone else. I had to do it for myself first, which any and everything that we do as a business to help others, we should have gone through it ourselves so that we're speaking from a common ground, right? That's the difference between talking at someone and talking with someone. Like you should do this, but if you didn't do it, how are you going to tell me how to do it?
Right. Yes. No, I love this because there is, on this path, there are lots of ups and downs, right? And and you said it before, you don't always wake up one day and go, this is what I want to do. Like, this is my beacon. This is where I'm going. It's an evolution that you start to find that path. But I think even if you don't have it really, really, really sharply in focus, but you're in the vicinity of it, it is so important to hold that belief and to
Mm,
hold that view and to stay focused on it so that when you're in those dipping points and when you're even in the high points too, that you're like, listen, I don't want to give it up. Like I can see it. It's out there somewhere and I know I need to shape it and evolve into it, but I believe enough that this is important to me and I've evolved to this place for a reason too. Like I ended up in this place on this path for a reason. I don't want to just give it up. And I can say like from example too, like as we talk about challenges and things that go well as entrepreneurs, for me, like there have been even recent moments where I'm like, I don't know. Like, is this it? And then I talk to you or I'll talk to other people and then they pull me back, right? They're like, "Oh no,
mhm.
here it is." Like you just saying that reminds me that like right, there's a beacon. Like I know that this, I'm in service to people and the service I'm offering is transformative. The work you did with me was transformative, right? And that's what gives you that purview of I'm on the right track. Like if I can hold on just a little longer, like I can see it, it's there. And then that's what keeps us in it. But if you're really far from that, or you've shoulded yourself out of the path, and you're like, well, I
Mhm.
should be over here on social media, and I should be over here servicing these people, and I should be doing this, that beacon is going to get harder to follow because it's not connected to who you are and like your authentic, your values, your integrity, the things you find important. It's going to start swaying you around. So when it gets hard, you're not going to have that beacon anymore.
Right. And there will never be, at least it's been my experience, not only from my personal journey, but in working with and collaborating with other women solopreneurs, there isn't a day where you're like, yes, absolutely, this is it, done, finished, it's awesome, perfect, nothing to change. We as human beings are constantly evolving and changing and shifting and pivoting. Why would we expect that our entrepreneurial pursuits or business or career wouldn't morph, shift, and pivot as well? Right? There are always opportunities to change, to improve, to maybe it's parallel, maybe it's not a complete, turnabout, but there should be constant change. So the idea of once I get to that one thing, it'll all be grand. That doesn't exist. And that to me is the antiquated thinking of I'll choose this one thing and work this one thing for the next 30 years of my life. That's just not the case anymore. So having those belief beacons as your foundation that don't change and building around that makes more sense to me because, if someone had told me 10 years ago that I would be running a content creation support community, one, I'd be like, well, what is that? I don't even know what you're talking about. But it's the natural evolution of I work with a lot of women entrepreneurs who are like, I want to create content for my business, but where do I start? I don't know how to do that. I want to unpack that in a container with other people so I can get feedback before I release it. Like that was just a natural thing. I didn't decide, okay, now I'm going to do the agency and then I'm going to do the coaching. And no, it was just a natural yes and progression of things that came out of necessity of, being asked for, something as a service or, hey, I want to try that and see how it goes. So it's being open-minded and being aware of where your mindset is as it relates to your beacons and what you want to share.
Yeah, it's important. And I think it's so relevant to the work you do also in terms of content creation, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of the people that I work with will be ready for launch and they'll have their launch messaging and they'll know how they're talking to their audience. And then all of a sudden they'll have an epiphany or a realization, or they'll want to
Mm-hmm.
service a different type of client with a different kind of message. And then they just stop. And then they're like, well, I got to get it right. Like it has to be perfect before I roll it out. And what you're saying, and I totally agree, is like it's not, you don't just like decide one day that it's 100% this and I'm going to put myself in a box. It's like it's a constant evolution. And as long as you're servicing your clients and addressing their pain points and being authentic and being a guide and as helpful as possible as you can, the service itself and the way you're creating offers and what you're giving to your people is almost secondary to the fact that you have your people. Like you're connecting with your people and you know that there's a transformative offer you can give them. But the way you message it and how you talk about it and the way that offer evolves, if you try to get it right and you try to perfect it and you stop all work until it's perfect, you will never work. You will never
Right.
have a client and you will never have anything out in the public because you're just going to be confined to this idea that you have to get it right and it has to be perfect and it has to be the right one message when you don't know until you put it out there if it is or it isn't.
Right. The knowing is in the doing,
Yes.
right? So you can pick up a book from a successful, established person who says, this is the system that worked for me, right? And hopefully in that story, the person is sharing all of the ups and downs and bumps. But as the consumer, as the reader, more often than not, we're more focused on the end result. This person accomplished this thing that I want, and they use this system, without understanding that they had to make mistakes, fail forward, but keep going and doing. And then they got to, now I'm really great at this thing and I'm successful and I'm sharing with other people. So I had to learn that in just sharing my own writing, right? So I'm helping other people with their content. I'm still having to share my stuff too. And I'm human. Imposter syndrome pops up and I'm like, I know grammar, I know punctuation, I know prose, I know that kind of stuff. Can I do, like, does my stuff sound okay? Is it okay? Oh my God. Maybe I'm not following my system. I had to just do it from my personal, like, this is what happened to me, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I experienced, this is what went wrong, this is what went right, and just do it, keep doing it, because the more you do it, it's not only that you get better at it, but it becomes this muscle memory that you don't have to then go back to the beginning every time and say, now wait, how do I do a blog post? Title, intro, detail, CT, like, you just do it without having to think about it. But you can't get to that if you're not doing it. So yeah, the knowing is in the doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And people just get stalled out because they're afraid to do it. So, which leads me to my next question, which is, we have these beliefs, right? We have this imposter syndrome or these stories and these things that block us too, right? Like, I have to be perfect. The message has to be perfect. Is there one like belief that you used to have that blocked you from moving forward in your business? Is
Oh,
there anything you can pinpoint where you're like, that belief needed to go for
heck
me to get
yeah.
further?
A limiting belief for me was, I'm not as experienced as other content folks,
Wow.
because I didn't have the traditional training or education or degree in communications, that kind of thing. And I think it was like, maybe it was my dad, of all people, who has no business acumen at all, said to me that, something to the point of, you are unique. What you bring to the table is what you bring to the table, and that has value. And then I was like, heck yeah, that's absolutely right, because it's through my vantage. We can read the same exact book or the same exact course, and you're going to get something totally different from it, and we can compare notes. And I can't say that your perspective is wrong, that your opinion is wrong, how you receive something is wrong. So no one can tell me that. Maybe someone says, well, that sentence could have gone at the end of that paragraph. Okay, fine. That's from your perspective. But how I am releasing it is from my perspective. And it's not wrong. It would be different from someone else, but it's not wrong. Of course, if you're blatantly saying the sky is purple when in fact it's not, then that's an issue. But yeah, if you're reassessing something that you've learned or something that you've experienced it, and you filter it through your own lens and through your own life experience, and then you share that, that's yours. That's yours. No one can take that from you. Even if there's someone that can say it a little bit different, and I won't say better, or they release it as a video instead of a blog post. That's just a different lens. It doesn't make it better.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I love that. I think it's so true for so many people. I think that thought, oh, I don't have enough experience. I'm not as experienced as other people. I don't have the same education. Why would anyone trust me? Why am I? I think it's so common when people, especially in the services industry, I think when you're selling products, it's like you're not as
Mhm.
front and center as you are when you're when you're in a service industry and you're the service, right? Like it's easy to feel kind of that imposter syndrome when you're showing up in these spaces as the expert. And but I think you're exactly right. Like we all come with our own expertise, and it's up to other people to decide if it's our version of it that they resonate with. And that we can't decide for people, but we want to express our, you know, regurgitation of the information or whatnot. Like it's important to us to feel like we want to spread the word, we want to get this information out, and people have to decide if they resonate with our version of it or not. And as long as we're showing up authentically and we're staying in our integrity, like people get to decide, and that's
Right.
great. But I
I
think that
published
thought is huge.
I published a piece this week, embracing imposter syndrome as a superpower or something like that. And like the subtitle was like, how the heck does that work? And uh, as I was writing that piece and doing a little bit of research, one thing that really stuck with me that I hope people will take and really receive is that feeling imposter syndrome is proof positive that you're doing the right thing, because it's a symptom of being an overachiever. If you weren't reaching for the thing that you think that you can't get, just the reaching alone will cause you to feel like maybe I shouldn't reach for that. I shouldn't go for that. Someone else has already gotten there before me. Someone else is saying it better or in a different way that I wish I could. You wouldn't feel like that if you weren't striving. So imposter syndrome, those feelings, if you have them, you should be celebrating that you have them, because that means you're doing it, that
Oh,
you're
I love that.
going for it, that you're reaching. People that don't, they don't have the courage to do the reaching. Why would they feel imposter syndrome? They're happy as a clam, not reaching.
Oh, it's so true. That is so true. It makes it land so much nicer too, because it's looked at as such a negative thing so often. Like it's I don't know, it makes you feel less empowered in a way when you embrace the fact that you have imposter syndrome. But I love the idea of you're right. Like you're reaching for something beyond your comfort zone. It makes total sense that you're going to feel slightly off kilter, but then you just you get there and then you get on kilter and then you reach again and you're going to feel that way again. And if we could all just get a little more used to feeling that way, then we'd keep reaching instead of letting it stop us.
Yeah,
Oh, I
think of
love
it
that.
like, oh man, I'm feeling imposter syndrome. Yes, I'm doing it.
I'm on
I'm
the
on the
right
way.
track. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Jay, I love talking to you. I am so happy we're back in touch. We need to stay connected. You are so inspiring, and I love this. I want you to have a chance to talk a little bit as we round out, like, who are the type of people that you feel like you serve best? Like if somebody's listening here and they're like, I think Jay's the right person for me to work with. Like, how would they identify themselves as being the right client for you?
That's a really good question. And before I get into that, thank you for this. This is awesome. And I love talking with you. I'm glad we're reconnecting, and I want us to stay connected now. To answer your question, I typically say early stage startup, someone who's just starting. But if I'm perfectly honest, when I'm writing content, sharing content, creating a course, I'm sharing it with who I was 10 years ago. And me 10 years ago is I'm at that figuring it out stage, or I want the validation that I'm on the right path. I'm someone who definitely wants to help people, support people, benefit people, whether that's in coaching or courses or, the marketing space. And I want the container person or group to help me do that. Right. So maybe you've been in business for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So that 0 to 3 years in business, but then also that next level of, I've been doing this for a minute. I've been doing this for a while, and I think I've found my people and I found my space, but I would like some finessing to what I'm doing. So when you say who would be the perfect person, or who would be the client, or who would be my target, it would be that 1 to 3 year, but then also beyond. So I say seasoned professional women leaders, or the early stage, which is not to say that's everyone, because you're going to have those C-suite women who feel like, I'm on it, I don't need you, and that's just fine. But I think at every stage, it's nice to have another set of eyes, another perspective, looking at your work, even going through a process to make sure that no steps have been skipped or something like that. So yeah, I would say me 10 years ago, trying to figure it out, looking for the support and the systems, especially when it comes to email marketing and newsletters and blogging, since those are my three sweet spots.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm going to make sure that in the show notes, there's a way for everyone to contact you. And I would love to also have a link to your imposter syndrome piece to
Yes.
share. That would be so great. I want to read it, but I'm sure people listening are going to want to read that as well. So they'll know how to get in touch with you, Jay. It's so great again to talk with you. And thank you for helping me celebrate the 1 year anniversary of my podcast, which is insane. I just can't believe how fast that went. And in terms of like creating content, somehow I like stayed consistent doing one podcast a week, which is a miracle because I've never stayed consistent with creating content ever before, as you know, since you were helping me with that as well during the time we were working together. But this is amazing. And I will talk to all of you, my audience, next week.